once again to the Grizzled Veterans Gaming Podcast.
Resurrected.
Resurrected, yeah. Obviously, most people coming to listen to us this time wouldn't be familiar with our old one. It was back in 2012.
My God, is it that long ago? So, to break the ice with everyone, we have your hosts, Mr. Jason Rose.
That's me.
And I'm Donovan Darko Oziak.
And we are the Grizzled Veterans. You have to forgive us. We're a little out of practice, but we will catch our stride at some point here moving forward. But yeah, we had a podcast, short-lived, more or less, in the pantheon. Yeah, it was. But it was off and on. We didn't really have a schedule, which is something we're going to try to rectify this time.
We'll see what happens. Yeah.
But as our name signifies, we are getting a little older, and sometimes life gets in the way of these things. Such is life. But our passion for this medium and gaming on a whole sort of has brought us back together. And we talked about this. And we wanted to get back together to talk about this thing that we love.
Yeah.
And here we are. I mean, I think it's been about 2 months we've been talking about this.
At least. I mean, we've had a couple of failed attempts. But in the end, here we are. Back in the saddle.
And we're doing it.
Yeah.
So I think a little synopsis of what we want to do moving forward. Maybe we can just paint a picture for the people that are going to listen. We are not going to try to keep current, more or less. We may talk about current games. Not may. We most likely will in offhand. But in terms of playing the newest games and stuff like that, it's really hard. In between our last podcast and now, I'm now a dad. Wow. I have a 15-month-old, and that leaves gaming time very difficult. To keep a healthy relationship, you have to put some time in with the wife. And if you want your son to know you after work and everything, you have to put some time in there too. So that only leaves a little bit of time for playing video games. And a passion project like this, which is a gaming podcast, and I only have a certain time to record, which is in the evening. So we'll have to come together. But the miracle of technology allows us to do this. Like, even back in 2012, man, I know people were recording podcasts over Skype and things like that, but the quality was suspect. Well, Zoom wasn't a thing.
No, not yet.
Right?
No, not yet. I mean, I always took a certain level of pride in our production values.
Oh, I will say, and sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm going to toot your horn here, so hold on your bridge. I don't do this too much, but I will say I used to listen to a ton of podcasts. Gaming podcasts. I listen to fewer gaming podcasts now because most of them bug me. But that's a topic for another time as we move forward. But your production values, and I took pride in what you did in terms of adding music and sound effects. And like, anyone can get on here and talk. And I guess that's what people come for, the talkie. But it's those extra added elements, I think, that'll get people coming back.
Well,
and I think you did a fantastic job.
Oh, thanks, man. And I had a lot of fun doing that. That was always something that, again, made it fun for me, right? So, post-production is actually a specialty of mine. So,
and I've sort of taught myself. I took hints from what you used to do and tried to incorporate in some of that stuff I did after. And I'm not as good as you at it, I'll tell you that. But honestly, like we had our own theme song, and you'd add like Chun-Li sound effects, and we'd have like, we'd talk about a current topic. Let's say back in the day it was Castlevania Lords of Shadow.
Sure.
You'd have the Castlevania music at the right level in the background. It sort of sets the mood.
Yeah, exactly, right? It was all about mood. I always tried to make sure that everything was didn't obstruct what we were.
Yeah, because you can't have it too loud. You got to be able to get.
No, it was all about mood. All about mood. So.
But your plans for, I think we're on the same page with this moving forward. Like, it's hard to keep current.
Well, I'll say that I wouldn't call myself a casual gamer at this point, but what has happened for me in the time since the original podcast is that, well, we had the price hike of games in Canada, which is, we used to be able to buy a game for $60, just like they could with our friends in the States.
Yeah.
But now you buy a game and it's $80 plus tax. And to be perfectly honest, it's made me less. I don't buy as many games new anymore. I'm always looking for the deals now.
And I agree with you. The price is a factor, but I think the price is more of a factor because of the state of the way games are released. And
Well,
we
and
can
that's
roll
the other
this
thing.
into our first topic. I wrote about this. I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking about this for well over a decade. And it's just the state that games come in, it's no longer, it's not worth it
No.
to be in on day one. Like, I know people say, you know, you want to be a part of the conversation. I don't care because the medium is evergreen. And the truth is, by waiting, I play an objectively better game. Whether it's like a 2015 The Witcher 3, I didn't play it until a year after launch.
Sure.
I played a better game than everybody that played that game on launch.
Well, that's a
by
good...
leaps and bounds. It added graphical options, gameplay options, content. It ran better. It loaded better. So what was the incentive? And the thing is, I got it for cheaper.
Yeah. Well, and again, the same thing is happening at Cyberpunk 2077 is a perfect example. You got a game that launched a year ago, and I literally just read that their plans for, you know, they're still working on bug fixes. They're still working on the next generation patch. And this is a year after launch.
Of course. I mean, it got so bad that PlayStation took it off their store.
Yeah.
I mean, I never dabbled. I was hyped for it, but I could see the writing on the wall with that. I was not ready to jump in. This game was clearly not ready, and it should never have been released on past generations anyway.
No.
And this is a problem we've seen across generations with certain games. But regardless, I have no problem. Like, the price for me is not an issue, but I refuse. I mean, we're both over 40. Okay, the Grizzled Veterans here. That's what it's about. Like, we're seasoned gamers, and we'll get back to. We'll reintroduce ourselves with our roots in a minute here, but it's to sort of explain why we're not going to keep current. In addition to the time, is just like I said, it is not worth it. It's not just the money. I don't want to be cheap. Like, I don't think gaming should be a cheap hobby. I think it's something that these people, they're a lot of years. They're incredibly expensive to make. People deserve to make the money off it. And when possible, I will purchase games, but on launch day. But if I'm going to play a better game in 6 months, and it so happens to be cheaper, to me, the quality is more important than the $20.
And I don't want to sound like a cheapskate myself.
It's not cheap, man. It's just smart.
Yeah. But yeah, I still want to play Cyberpunk at some point. But
so they pushed all those back. So in 2022,
they're still going to be doing.
Do you think you jump in at launch on the PS5 or?
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I don't have a PS5 yet, but I'm basically putting that game on the list of games I'm waiting to play.
Sure.
When I get a PS5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the library is slowly growing, and there's some great titles on PS5 at this point already. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the one that stands out the most to me so far is Returnal.
Yeah, and so Returnal is a game that, okay, first of all, I don't really like roguelikes.
They're not my favorite either.
I don't really enjoy the randomness of the genre. And a lot of these games, they don't learn or they don't input the right lessons. Returnal is a perfect example. From what I've read and what I learned, to be honest, maybe it shouldn't have even been a roguelike in that aspect, because all the progression elements that make the genre rewarding weren't in it. In addition, a lot of the runs were extremely long, longer than most, like Rogue Legacy and Hades.
Sure.
Those seem to be shorter geared runs. But at least in those games, when you died, the progression was there. You were earning things. But Returnal seemed to be, there were certain things, but really, I mean, the guns were sort of upgraded. Now, maybe I'm wrong here, but I'm just going off what I've read about it.
I watched Maximilian. And I didn't watch his whole playthrough, but I ended up starting to watch it, and I ended up watching a couple hours.
Okay.
And he started a couple of runs within that playthrough, and things carry over. So while I'm not sure if the story elements do as well, but there's like, you do start from the beginning every time you die.
Of course.
But you actually keep whatever upgrades you've earned in the previous runs that you've made.
Okay.
So if you find something for your suit or whatever that, or a weapon or that kind of thing, you actually keep some of that stuff.
But
so
Returnal, this also falls along with what we were just talking about. See, what kept me away mostly, due to the length of the runs, and then now not offering save states. Right. My time is more value to me now.
And I think there's a lot
And
of people in the same boat.
I can't afford, like, with a child now and a family, like, I can't be an hour or an hour and a half into a run and have to, like, put it down and I can't save it.
Yeah.
That's just a waste of time to me. Then I have nothing to show for that hour and a half that I just did.
Sure.
I can't save it. So that's what kept me away. Now, they just released a patch along with photo mode with save states, which they should have done in the first place. There was no reason for them not to have it. And now that they have done that, guess who's going to buy it? Jason Rose is going to buy Returnal. Because I love Housemarque, I love everything that they do. But Returnal, that kept me away. And here we are. And that wraps into the thing. If I would have jumped in, I probably would have been happy with the product. So here we are.
It would be interesting to be able to, like, do a little time loop yourself and see what would have happened.
Well, I suppose. I mean, I wish we all could rewind time sometimes, man.
Let's not even start going on that trail.
Sure. I mean, maybe I would have got a face tattoo. Would have saw how that worked out. Then I could rewind it and realize I was a loser.
Well,
so
what
whatever.
about the kid that got the gold dreads sewn into his scalp? Yeah.
No. But anyway, let's go back and reintroduce some of the things that we did and where we came from with our game movers. Donovan, why don't you start? Like, we have a lot. We started basically at the very beginning.
Oh, dude. I mean, I was playing Space Invaders and Pac-Man in the arcade when I was a kid. So my passion started in the arcades in the early 80s when I was still a kid. So, you know, I think about it now, and I've been gaming for pretty much 40 years at this point.
You're that old, eh?
Dude, I'm going to be 47 in a couple
months.
months.
You heard that, ladies and gentlemen? 47.
Yeah, definitely grizzled. And I think that, again, you know, all these years I've been playing, and just to kind of retouch on what we've been talking about, yeah, like the way that games are delivered now, because they're not finished most of the time, yeah, it's easier for me to wait in that regard.
Mm-hmm. So what was your first console? Piece of hardware?
Wow. I mean, I was 7 when we got our Atari 2600.
Mm-hmm.
So, and, you know, I can remember rolling the score on Asteroids, you know, things like that. I still have my Atari, so it's a lot of fond memories there.
Oh, you still have it?
Yeah, I still have it. Got a bag full
Does it
of
work?
games. Yeah, it works. It works.
Are they worth money?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's not in the best condition, but it works.
Okay.
And I've got a bag full of, like, I don't know, 30 games or something for that thing. You know, I bought my own Nintendo 8-bit after that. I bought most of my systems at that point. I think the only system that I ever got as a gift was my PlayStation 1 I got for Christmas the year it came out, Final Fantasy 7. But yeah, I mean, as far as history goes, my biggest loves have always, you know, I grew up in the arcade, but then it turned into, like, once I started playing Final Fantasy and stuff like that, it was a major turning point. So yeah, Street Fighter, Final Fantasy, action adventure, that's me.
So let me ask you this. Is there one moment that you could point to in your, you know, infancy with this medium that was the turning point, that you realized that I'm going to love this thing forever? I mean, we all go through peaks and valleys, and we've all had moments in our lives where we've stopped playing video games.
And I did that.
And that, I think everybody has. And if you're younger and you're listening and you haven't, trust me, you will have that point. You know, you'll go to college, you find chicks, and you'll be like, you know what? Gaming is although it's changed, man. Like, gaming wasn't as cool when we were growing up. But so what was that moment?
I would actually say it was probably the NES era.
But, like, is there a game
specifically which game?
Because, like, I have one for myself.
See, I was playing other people's Nintendos before I got mine, but I think because, you know, we had that little bit of a lull when the game crash happened, and then that led into the Nintendo era. You know, I had friends that had, you know, Super Mario and stuff like that. I actually think Super Mario 2 would have been a game that made me want to get my own Nintendo.
The Mario that actually wasn't a Mario.
Yeah.
So they brought it here.
Yeah.
So that was a game that you were like, I love this shit.
Yeah.
I can't get it.
Now I want to have this system for myself. I think the first game that I bought for myself with my own money for my Nintendo was Blaster Quest.
Okay.
And I never actually ended up beating that game, but I loved it.
It's tough.
It's tough, but that game is just got great music, excellent graphics for its time. Super challenging. Like I said, I never ended up beating it, but it's something that sits in the back of my mind. So
you were an NES guy.
Yeah.
Because I mean, rolling into me, like, I was a Sega kid.
Right.
And I take a lot of pride in that. Most people, they scoff, oh, it's NES. But my big point, as I've learned moving forward, what I found is, now this isn't you because you're an anomaly here, but I find a lot of people that were NES kids around our same age seem to skip over the Sega generation. It's a blip in their thing because, it's funny, a lot of people think that, like, the console wars are this modern thing, that it never existed, that we lived in some fairyland with rainbow Rainbow Bridge.
Everybody had a Genesis and a Super Nintendo.
What's the Mario Kart level with the rainbow?
Rainbow Bridge.
Rainbow Bridge. I can't remember the exact name, but it was all unicorns and rainbow, and we all held hands. But no, it was a fucking war. Oh yeah, sorry, we're gonna swear on this podcast, whatever.
Absolutely.
But like, even as kids, man, we were throwing each other off snow hills. Like, if you weren't a Sega kid or a Nintendo, like, it was a big deal. But anyway, I found that Nintendo kids, like, Sega Master System was just something that they never had any experience with.
Yeah.
And in that, they missed a lot. And by proxy, they probably missed out on a lot of the Genesis as well. At least until Sonic came out. And then it became more of a, as a relaunch. But for me, I was a Sega. Now, I'm a bit younger than you. I'm 42. I'll be 43 next year. But, I mean, I've seen pretty much everything there is to see, other than the infancy. But, we didn't actually have, like, it was bleeps and bloops back then.
Pong,
which doesn't mean it wasn't any less effective or anything. It's just, I think I was there for the building blocks, so to speak, and to see it grow into what it is now. But as a Sega kid, I will say the first game that I played, a bunch of games. I loved them. There's Gangster Town, the Space Harrier, and I loved all these games. And it was in the arcade too. But Phantasy Star 1 was the game that made me fall in love with this. And I remember the moment you get this passport, and you're like, because I ran out of things to do on the first world.
Okay.
It was the first world Motavia? I can't remember.
I think so.
Or Palma, I can't remember. But you either go, it's one of those two worlds. You buy the passport. I don't know. I didn't even know it was possible. Gaming was so much more abstract then. There was no handhold.
And that's the thing, right?
And you just had to figure shit out.
Yeah.
And when you figure, it was so rewarding. There was no internet then, folks. You couldn't just look things up. There were no phones. Like, I mean, we had a home phone, but we didn't have a cell phone.
Maybe if you had a buddy that had gotten through it, you could call him up or whatever, right?
You had these myths and legends and things that could pursue secrets. And, that's how all these codes and things that came along. But anyway, I bought the passport. I took it to this place, and all of a sudden I'm flying through space going to a new planet in this game. And I'm like, that's it. I'm in love.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to love this shit until I was 80 years old. And sure enough, I guarantee that's going to be the moment.
I mean, I had when I first played Final Fantasy 1, that was a huge turning point.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, I'd played some cool stuff before that. I tried playing Dragon Warrior, but
because you're on like an adventure.
Oh yeah.
And a quest, and they're telling you story, and you're into this stuff.
That was the first time that I ever played a game for the entire day.
Mm-hmm.
I basically put like 12 hours into that game in my first sitting.
Your hands are cold. You got no circulation.
I basically went down for dinner, and then I went to bed when I was done for the day.
Yeah.
Those were like the only breaks I had. Maybe going to the bathroom a couple times, right? But
you're looking like Gollum. You crawl out of the hovel,
wandering the same path over and over again just to fight giants.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if we're a bit scatterbrained, folks, like, we're just trying to catch our stride. We literally wrote no notes for this.
Yep.
I mean, if you do decide, I will include links in the show notes for this to all of the old stuff. You'll find that those shows used to be a lot more structured. And we will be more structured as we move forward.
We're going to go a little loosey-goosey on this.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. Like, we're excited to be doing this again and reintroducing ourselves and talking about video games. Frankly, I don't care if anyone listens. I don't. Like, I would like for people to listen. That's great. But we're so passionate about this stuff, and we've had such a lifelong love about it. It's just nice to put our thoughts out there into the ether. And if people want to tune in, so be it.
Well, it's like you said, there's plenty of podcasts out there, people covering new stuff, and old stuff for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to kind of fit in there in our own little niche.
And add our 2 cents.
Yeah.
Is there... Like, I look back on games. a genre that's disappeared for the most part for me is what they call now shmups, and I hate that name, man. I hate it because when we grew up,
We called them shoot 'em ups.
I didn't go. They were just shooters.
Yeah, or
Like, because
shooters.
first-person shooters didn't exist.
I know.
They were shooters, arcade shooters. All these games, Space Harrier, and then as you graduated onto, there was 1942, and I mean, God, there were so many of them, and those games were shooters. It always bothers me, and I think if you go on some of the old podcasts, you'll hear me railing about this too.
Dude.
Those are shooters.
Yep.
Call of Duty, that's a first-person shooter.
Right.
Like, there's no shmup or bullet hell. I don't care what those names are. Those games are shooters.
I don't like bullet hell.
Well, I mean, those are just a subset.
I know, yeah.
I mean, but those shooters, the slowdown, and the bullets would all crawl, and you could carve your space.
Well,
but like, I look back at those games, and I think me and you, we kind of had a bond over those.
Dude,
Thunder Force. Felios.
Yeah.
Garius, or was it Garius? Gyrus, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, and Musha.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, buddy.
So
how good?
So since we're bringing up some of this retro stuff, like one of the most fun things that I've got for myself in the last couple of years is these new analog machines, the company Analog. So I've got the Super NT and the Mega SG.
Mm-hmm.
And these are, instead of having a Super Nintendo Mini or a Genesis Mini, well, these are just as good as those, except you can actually stick cartridges in them.
Mm-hmm.
So having all these classic shooters and of course all the rest of the library has been a real treat. Revisiting some of these games.
You get to refine, and you discover things that you missed.
Yeah.
Because as kids, your wallet, your funds aren't as strong.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking about pricing before, but back then, we just would have a couple games and play. You actually had to go. There was no digital marketplace to just to delve. You had what you had, and you played what you played. So you missed out on a significant part of the library.
Well, and now we can kind of cheat because we've got these like micro SD cards and stuff like that, and we're playing ROMs,
mm-hmm.
which is the other really fun thing that I've been doing is I've been playing a lot of these ROMs, but not just the bare ROM, but going into like the romhacking.com site and finding all these really amazing hacks that people have done over the years, whether it be translations for games that never got English translations.
That's big for me because there were so many games that I missed.
Yeah.
That they were just you'd read about them in old game magazines like Game Fan, and it would you're like, I can't wait till this comes here, and then some of them would never come.
Yeah. Well, Final Fantasy V is a perfect example.
Mm-hmm. And we finally kind of have it.
Yeah,
now.
we get it now, but like for years, that was just they didn't bring it out over here,
mm-hmm.
right? So way back when, there's Donovan playing 20 hours of a Japanese Final Fantasy game until he can't figure out where to go to next.
Can't understand anything.
But I played it just because I loved Final Fantasy so much. I didn't care. I just wanted to play this game.
Mm-hmm. So you played. What's a recent ROM that you played that you loved, or like?
I think the best one that I've played so far is a ROM hack for Final Fantasy 4 or 2, depending on how you go. But obviously 4 is the
mm-hmm.
proper. Final Fantasy 4 Ultima, or I think it's Ultima.
Is that what they call the?
And yeah, so this guy has done an incredible job of not just like they've added new challenges, like little side quests. There's way more stuff to do in the end game, which there wasn't. I don't even know if the original game had an end game per se.
It did, but there were optional stuffs in the final dungeon.
Yeah. Like
weapons and quests, or not quests, but bosses.
Yeah. And so this guy has just gone and added even like twice as much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And even a new game plus, which allows you to level up your characters up to, I think, level 149 or something like this. So I hadn't played through the entire game in a long time. So it was just really refreshing. Brought back a lot of memories.
Yeah.
It's a great story.
So we can roll into the next thing that also delves into our history is Final Fantasy is right at the top for both of us.
Absolutely.
If not the top, it's top 3 for both of us
mm-hmm.
in terms of franchises and loves for gaming. And if I could, my second moment with games was on the SNES when I picked up. It was Final Fantasy 2, but obviously Final Fantasy 2 when I grabbed that red case in the cardboard. And I was on vacation with my parents. I picked it up in Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
And I couldn't play it for like 2 weeks because we were on vacation. So
But
I lorded over the manual, which manuals back then were the thing, man.
Oh man.
Like it was like a mini
book.
textbook. It was like a book, and I
Yeah.
miss that so much.
Oh dude.
And that's why I still adhere to the physical. I rather have a tangible thing, and I buy all these physical things that have art books or whatever. But the Final Fantasy 4 for you, how high is it? Because when you walk these or read these lists, I always find like Final Fantasy 4 seems to be somewhere in the middle to the. It's never in the top half anymore. But for me, it's one of my 3 favorites.
That's tough because I think I go back and forth a little bit, but because 12 is one of my favorites, but 4 and 6 are both excellent in their own rights. Everybody always goes on about 7, and I'm certainly not going to knock 7. It's a fantastic game, but I wouldn't call it my favorite.
And the reason I'm rolling into a current topic, which is the re-releases or the re-pixels. That's what Square's calling them.
Sure.
And they're relaunching them. But the specifically 4 is what I'm finding is I want these things. I'm not going to buy them on mobile or Steam. I want them on consoles.
Oh yeah.
And it's mind-boggling that they're not releasing them for.
I
assume they're going to do it, but I really hope they don't nickel and dime us. I want a full physical package. Release all of them
in one.
Yeah. Just like, I don't care what you charge me, man. Give me the extras. I'll pay $100 for 6 games.
If they put those first 6 games on one disc and charge $90 for it,
with some trimmings though, like you can't just give the disc.
No,
it's gotta have some stuff with it.
No, give us a nice book and like a nice case, whatever. Like I don't know what else.
But what bothers me about them is that they've cut the. You're talking about the ROM and the added stuff. Okay, well I understand they're not going to adopt that stuff.
No,
but I recently moved, folks, and like I've dug out all my old stuff and my old PSP, the Final Fantasy 4 complete collection I have, and the PSP version has all this extra stuff,
like the after years and stuff. Right?
Well, it has the after years content, and there are some other things in it as well. Like even remember there was the developers room.
Yeah, you
could go in there, and that's just a small thing. It means nothing. They've cut that out of the re-pixel. That's not in it, and this stuff bothers me. Like. I don't want, don't cut these things out. Like, as we move forward in time, you should be at the very least maintaining or expanding to me. Like, I mean, these re-pixels things they're cool.
They should be director's cuts or whatever you want to call it.
But they're really staying true to the graphics. I guess the music is fantastic. That's the one thing that people can agree on, that they've redone that. But I replayed the, Final Fantasy 4 when I dug the PSP collection out, and I was in love with this game. I still think it's great. I never forget the first, you roll into the first dungeon and that music hits the
oh dude,
it's so good. Like it's eternal.
Well, because I can remember working at I worked at a video store when Final Fantasy 2
I just completely sang the wrong song. No,
you did the world.
Yeah. There. Sorry. That's the right one.
Sure. But yeah, I mean, I can remember getting that game and feeling the same way about the music the first time I heard it. I was just like, wow.
I remember I walk into that music hits, I kind of got like the hairs on my neck stood up, and I paused for a second. I was like, wow,
this is game music.
This is like, and we both have more than fond, a huge love for gaming music, and I love some of the old, the chiptune stuff. But it was like this was like a next level.
Oh yeah,
of video game music.
I mean, the jump between the 8-bit music and the 16 music was huge, bigger than the graphical jump.
For sure. I mean, the graphical jump came in the second half of that console life.
What I didn't actually realize until later was that the Super Nintendo wasn't significantly more powerful than the original NES. It was actually derived from that architecture and just expanded upon it. So technically, it could have been a more powerful system than it was.
And which is funny because it took a full year I mean, back then things would come out in Japan much earlier, whereas now they're day and date, if not here first, which the PS5 and the Xbox here first, and then they come out in Japan later.
Which is crazy.
Well, I mean, it's just, that's the way the business, they don't even buy the hardware anymore. But we would have to wait. The Super Nintendo came out over a year later in America.
Yep.
And we waited, whereas the Genesis was out a full year. No, we did have our means to sort of get in.
Well, we had contacts, and at the time,
you know, we're friends with some triad members that smoke through the bars. No, we just buddies that own little video game huts in video stores.
Well, so I got my Super Famicom like ages before the Super Nintendo was out, and I had my copy of Super R-Type.
Yep.
And, you know, you look back at those games and, like, yeah, you know, there's quite a bit of slowdown and stuff.
I didn't care.
Like Gradius and stuff like that. Or Gradius, depending on how you want to say it. R-Type's definitely got a lot of slowdown in it.
It does.
But again, that's actually something that some of these ROM hacks have fixed. Some of the slowdown.
But you can also keep it if you want.
Yeah.
There's options to toggle. And this is what's great. Gaming companies, software companies, they haven't done enough to preserve gaming history, and they're seemingly just content with letting things die on a vine, and to me that's unacceptable.
Well, and I agree. I don't understand. Like, Sony was very vocal about that actually before the PS5 came out, and it just kind of blew my mind. Like, the PS5 is a very capable system, and it's great that it plays PS4 games, but it kind of blows me away that they didn't just include PS1, PS2. I know that.
Well, that was the conversation, and you look at the original presentation with Mark Cerny. I guess we might as well move into current stuff with the PS5. And I mean, I have a PS5. I got one day one, and I like and love it. But on the original presentation, you can see on the slide that it's PS4 games, and it seemed like there was room for them to add slots at the PS3, PS2, PS1. But all you can surmise at this point is that Microsoft's hardware engineers and software engineers are superior to Sony's.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I prefer the PlayStation brand and their software and exclusive games,
sure,
Microsoft's hardware and the people that figured, like, what they've done with the backwards compatibility options and the way they even do it, it's not just the options. The fact that you can just put a disc in and then it accepts it.
And that's what I mean.
Like, that's incredible.
I love that so much.
Like, and folks, it seems like a small thing. People thought that was impossible. They basically patched the hardware to accept old discs that would recognize a digital offering and download that.
And that's the thing. So my favorite counterpoint to this is that I own Rogue Galaxy for PS2.
Yeah.
And it's available for PS4.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't put my Rogue Galaxy disc into my PS4 and have it say, "Oh, you own this game? Well, then we'll download the new version for you for free."
Whereas you were able to take
Ninja Gaiden Black
or the original Knights of the Old Republic disc.
Yeah, well, and I don't have that anymore. But
you could.
Yeah, I've got Panzer Dragoon Orta.
Yeah, and all these old original Xbox games.
Slide
the disc in,
and boom,
slide it in, baby.
Yeah,
slide it in.
And then, you download and you're good to go.
Finish, no lube.
Yeah.
No, but to me, that's just, it's insane. And as much as, I mean, the PS5 had to include PS4. Like, if it didn't include PS4 games, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
But, like you, I have all this old library. And I ran my ass off once I moved to hook my PS3 back up and my Vita back up to make sure, I know the stores weren't, originally they were just going to do away with them entirely.
Right.
Which was bullshit. And then the outcry was so big that they're like, okay, well, we're going to hold on to them, but. And then finally they just added where you can't use your credit card anymore. You have to deposit funds from the digital store, or I found you can actually go on your PS3 or PS5, or PS4 and put funds in
your wallet.
But then you got to, separately, you got to reload the store on the PS3 or Vita,
which is so
and
slow.
Redo all this stuff. And then I noticed the stores were broken for a bit. And I'm like, why is this so hard? Okay, in the grand scheme of things, everything is awesome and no one's happy. That's just the truth of it. It's still pretty incredible to where we are, but in terms of what should be acceptable in 2021 and the way some of the stuff is happening on PlayStation, they're playing catch up with the stuff.
Sure.
it's kind of unacceptable.
Well, and I agree with that whole catching up point, because it always feels like Sony's playing catch up with Microsoft in terms of those added features,
Hardware wise,
Yeah.
and like the soft infrastructure
Yeah.
on the hardware. Games wise, well ahead.
Sure.
And that's why we ultimately play, is because of the games. I mean, no one's like, wow, let me look at this thing that does this thing, except the games. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, that's not why we're here. But these advances, they just should be there. And I will just put it like this: I love my PS5. I'm glad I have one, and I'm not. I hear some people are like, "Oh, you know, there's no reason to have one," and you know what I mean. You're not missing out on anything. That's garbage. Everyone would be happy with their purchase into the next generation, whether it's Microsoft or Sony. Okay, but every time I turn my PS5 on, it makes me miss my PlayStation 4.
Really? That's
100%.
And here's a funny thing: I'm not going to be able to get rid of my PS4
Why is that?
because it's got PT on it.
Oh, and I do as well. Nor would I want to, like, because it's like, the reason I say that is because it's not because of the way it runs. The PS5 runs seamlessly. It runs incredible. Like the SSD on it and the way you can do all this stuff, it's like, it's so snappy and it's so quick. But man, I miss the themes. I miss the folders.
Yeah, like,
I miss being able to organize this shit. I'll give you an example, okay? If I have a game on the PS5 and there's a patch, okay? And it updates. Super fast, by the way.
Yeah.
Compared to the PS4 even.
Okay.
But I can't look at the patch notes on the PS5. I have to load my phone up. Whereas on the PS4, after it was done, I'd see the patch note updates right in the thing. Unless certain games, at least, like Overwatch, for instance, on the PS4, it would say, read the patch notes online.
Okay.
But for the most part, I could read the patch notes, what they changed, what they added, what they fixed. Where at the PS5, there's no option for that.
Really?
And it's such a small thing,
Yeah.
Donovan. And I get it. It's in its infancy. Okay, the PS4 wasn't the PS4 at the end as it was at the beginning.
Sure.
They added things along. But you know what? How do you not take the shit that people love and add it onto your new thing and then add on? We shouldn't start over from zero.
Why didn't the PS5 launch with all of the features of the PS4 and then whatever they were going to put into the PS5?
Even if you don't like the folders, some people like to see everything on their thing.
Sure.
That's fine. But I like the options. I can have my Final Fantasy folder. I can have my From Software folder with Bloodborne and Dark Souls and Sekiro. Or I can have my Resident Evil folder where my Resident Evil games are on.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Shut up, you didn't?
No.
Oh,
I've never dug that deep into
and I
it.
love the themes. Like, I love putting themes on. Like, whether I want to turn my console into the old PS1 look or the PS2 look or whatever the fuck I want to do. I don't know. Do I want some anime titties on it? Then I get some anime titties.
PS3 actually had some nice themes.
Yes, it did.
That I almost think are better than some of the ones you can get for PS4. Or
yes and no, but there were some cool ones.
Or is it like, see, I find that the user interface on the PS4 is still a bit clunky at times.
Well, it definitely slowed down.
Yeah.
Now most people don't do the PS4 version of the defrag.
Yeah.
You should go and I forget I can't think of the name of it, but it definitely makes a difference. But ultimately,
the cache cleanup. Is that what it is?
It's not a system restore, but there's another name for it. And it basically it's like if you defragged your and you clean your cache, and it runs quicker.
Right.
Because all that reinstalling, deleting, and stuff like that, it sort of fucks up the back end.
Absolutely.
But I'm not making excuses for it. Ultimately, yes, it's true. Just like your old iPhone, eventually it starts to chug as firmware is updated. It just happens.
I wondered if sometimes it was the themes that were like, because there's too much going on in the theme that it's actually slowing down.
No, I don't think that's true.
Okay.
I just think it's partially, that what I just said, not running that option that most people never do. Like most people would have that hardware for 5 years and never run that, and they've installed, deleted hundreds of games.
Sure.
But also just, with the firmware and all the wear and tear and the updates, it becomes outdated hardware. Yeah. That's just the truth. So it chugs. But anyway, the PS5 does make me miss my PS4 and the way it was. I still started up my PS4 and I'm like, man, that just feels like home. Like, it just feels good. Like, it's like, a nice soup on a cold day, and there it is. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to go back and play games on my PS4 because they run so much better, but and vice versa. The new Xbox runs like that too.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and here's I'm in an interesting boat because I have always owned both systems. Mm-hmm. I had a Super Nintendo and a Genesis. I had an Xbox and a PlayStation 2. Although I got my PlayStation 2 way later.
Did you?
Yeah, that was actually when I took a break, like you were mentioning earlier. I took a few years off gaming. I thought, okay, and then I ended up changing jobs, and there was a guy at work that got me back into gaming again, just be talking about it all the time. But let me ask you a question, since
shoot,
I like questions. What is the best game that you've played in the last few years? What's your favorite game that you've played in the last few years?
That's a good question. Oh man, so I'll admit, as much as I love my nostalgia, and we've had this conversation on previous podcast.
Yeah.
Like, I love old games. Some of these games will never be topped. In fact, my top 5 games were likely all games. Now, I'd have to revisit it to be sure. And we talked about this. I'm actually compiling a list of my top 100 games.
Oh, top 100.
Which is hard.
Oh, dude.
Because I'm just compiling a massive list, and I'm like, holy shit, what games do I cut here? But in recent years, oh man, you put me on the spot. It's like a game that I adored, okay, you know what? I'll just put it like this. There's a game, I love Shadow of the Colossus. Okay. I know not as many people cared for The Last Guardian, but to me, I think Last Guardian is a special game that holds a special place for me for very specific reasons.
That's a great answer.
It's a last year, and the reason is The Last Guardian was released when I lost my dog, Ovi, and it came out right at the time.
So the bond between the characters in the game.
It took me a year to play that game.
Wow.
I couldn't do it. And the trailers were so powerful and emotional. I knew what I was in for.
Yeah.
And I finally sat down and played it, and it's something that I'll never forget.
Sure.
And by the end, I was a mess. I really was a mess. And to me, I know the game has problems, okay? It controls a little obtusely. So does Shadow of the Colossus, by the way. Yeah. And that's a consensus greatest game of all time. It just is. I'm not saying it has to be one of yours, not the royal you. I'm talking about everybody out there. But what it did for gaming and the way it's heralded, The Last Guardian shares some of those obtuse controls and problems.
Yeah.
But they never hindered me to the point to lose the magic of what the game was trying to do.
Sure. Okay.
So, there's so many games, Donovan. And it's funny. I think a lot of people out there get asked that question, and all the time we're like, this game's great, this takes a place on my pantheon. But when you ask it, it's like your mind just goes blank.
Because I asked you, of course, I've got some stuff going through my head.
So what's a game recently for you?
So I'm going to say profound gaming experiences.
Sure. And it's funny because you can take it so many different ways. You can be like incredibly awesome, like visually blew me away, and like controls, or it could be something that just resonated with you on an emotional level.
I think the two games that spring to mind from most recently, and one of them is a couple of years old now, but Nier Automata absolutely floored me with its story when you got to the big twist. And I'm not going to say what the big twist is just in case, but anybody that's played that game and got engrossed in it knows exactly what I'm talking about. The other game that really, and I'm not surprised that I had a profound experience with it, even though I have mixed emotions about sections of it, but Death Stranding.
Okay. We talked about this, actually. Yeah.
Death Stranding, not a game for everybody. I get that. I find that the best way that I've been able to describe the game to people who haven't played it yet is it's kind of like alternative music as a video game, if that makes any sense.
Explain.
So, the best example that I've used in the past is that, say, if Doom is like Metallica, Nine Inch Nails kind of thing, then Death Stranding is like Radiohead.
Okay.
So
I think it's a good example. I just,
it's a
explain
totally
for the viewers.
It's a unique way to describe a game, like
because Radiohead brings in so many elements. They're not just, you can't pigeonhole the band.
well, and it's such an emotional experience too. Like Death Stranding definitely hits some very powerful notes in its narrative. It's not a perfect game. It did piss me off at one point.
When you got to go back and forth and then back again.
Well, we spend a bunch of time building a network and only to find out
and then they fuck you and you can't use it to get back.
Right.
It's like you carefully put all those the zip lines.
The zip lines and whatever else. If someone had just said, "Don't do that yet," I would have been grateful. But I tried to play it as without hints and all that kind of stuff as I could. And I thoroughly enjoyed the game, but that particular moment made me put the controller down for a bit.
And it's a good conversation because it is relatively current because they just released the director's cut.
Exactly.
And that content. Now, do you think you'll go back?
On PS5?
Well, are those...
I think the director's cut is only available on PS5.
Okay, fine. Would you revisit the game? Because I
think I
distinctly remember talking to you, and I think you soured on it towards the end.
Yeah.
But now that you've thought about it, you've separated yourself, removed yourself. Now you're
since I know what happens, I can avoid having that disappointment again, right? I can get to that point in the game and go to myself, okay, I know that if I do all this, it's a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just...
But I mean, they give it back to you.
I just mean, don't do it now, do it after the fact.
Yeah, but I mean, it when you do it, it does make, because there's a lot of things you do. I guess if you just want to rush the story and then do all the delivery shit and build your bonds up afterwards, I guess you could do it that way.
There's a lot of character moments in that too, and so I get like skipping that isn't necessarily the smartest idea either. But yeah, that was the sort of the one thing that, and yeah, souring is a good way to put it. But that doesn't mean that I don't think that I had a profound experience playing.
And
that
it was.
game.
I will say, and I agree with you. It's funny because we both pick games that would typically be outside of what people would class as a traditional great gaming experience, because neither of them play extremely well. Like the Death Stranding, it doesn't play poorly, but like it's not the combat isn't great, the driving isn't great.
The driving,
and it actively, like some of the elements actively are there to frustrate you.
Yeah.
But it's like trying to describe Death Stranding to someone is also difficult as well.
Yeah.
And that's why to me, like, it's a brilliant offering from Kojima, who is just a master. And Metal Gear is also one of our favorite franchises of all time.
From a story perspective, it is in a class of its own. I mean,
but it's so daring.
like it.
Like it's such a daring game, because it's like in a time where it's funny, because I think gaming is as good as it's ever been when everything is clicking. Like,
sure.
I'm not talking about the patches and stuff. Forget all that. Games release like shit. Yes, they do. But when they get to the state that they're intended to be, thing is like, it's like milk and honey, man. It's perfect. And games are mediums in a fantastic shape. Although there are disturbing trends we can get to later, but Death Stranding is a game that is, it's a daring take in 2020. When did it release? Was it 2020 or late 2019?
I think it was 2019.
Oh man, I don't know. I'm not gonna pull it. I
At this
know
point,
guys usually pull it up with the phone. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I played it in 2020, so whatever. But it's like, you deliver. It's like, how do you explain it?
End of
You
2019.
walk and you deliver packages to people.
No, pitching this game. How would you pitch this
Exactly,
game?
and
If
that's
you
what I'm
weren't
saying,
Kojima, you would not have been able to make this game.
Sure.
Not on the
Nobody
scale.
could. No.
Not on the scale that it is, and
No.
not with the depth.
And the fact that it works, like it actively hampers the way you want to play things, and weight encumbrance and traveling, and you fall down, and it's like it's difficult to actually get, but it all clicks. It's like you build to this thing and you're like, oh, this is great.
It's a very well-oiled machine, that game. No, I despite any,
And it's far from perfect. Like,
it's not a perfect
there are
game.
qualms.
Yeah.
That I think the director's cut does give you. It's almost become like it adds more of the Kojima elements that we love from Metal. Like, for instance, there's a jetpack in it.
Well, isn't there like a whole stealth like?
Yeah, and like
Almost
Metal
a
Gear
very Metal
homage.
Gear. Yeah.
But
So-
like even traveling, but it's a great game. I love Death Stranding, and it's like we both pick these games that are like, yeah, outside of the mold. Like, well, some people might pick like The Last of Us, which is also not playing, or like an
God of
action
War.
game. Yeah, God of War, which there's nothing wrong with a pick like that.
Yeah.
But these are untraditional offerings that I think Death Stranding was the most innovative game of the last generation.
Well, that's kind of why I picked it as well, because there's nothing like it.
There really isn't, and that's rare.
Yeah.
In the mind, like
In modern
generally
gaming,
everything's, and I don't need everything to be innovative.
No, but
Whether it iterates or it's even something that just sort of straight up takes elements and makes it their own. I'm okay with that. Like some people are like hard as, oh, it's just the same old or whatever. I'm like, so what? Is it great?
is it fun to play?
No, I don't want like 5 cookie cutter games. That's different,
Yeah.
right? But I don't know. What do you think's going on with Kojima now? What do you think he's doing? Because there's that rumor with Microsoft, but they may have two teams.
Yeah, I did hear about some hiring recently, I think, right? So obviously he's got something in the works. I don't really know too much about it yet.
Mhm.
So I just...
Do you think one of them's Silent Hill? Because with
God.
the news that Konami has decided to revamp their gaming division.
I don't think that Kojima and Konami will work together again.
I agree with you, but I think Sony can bring them together.
Maybe.
As
I heard there was it's not going to be in-house as far as the Silent Hill game goes, right?
okay,
I think it's going to be third party.
Mhm.
I can't remember.
but that's what Kojima Productions is.
But this is true. But man, that would be really bizarre to me.
Sometimes time heals all wounds, and
Hey,
I honestly can see it. The rumors are out there for it. Honestly, I think it's basically confirmed more or less. Silent Hill is happening. Silent Hill.
I know that there is a Silent Hill happening, and there's a Metal Gear happening as well. But that's not going to be. That's going to be like
So
in-house.
that's well, what they're doing for the future of Metal Gear, I don't know. Although I have my theories and things that I'd like to happen, but they're definitely remaking Metal Gear Solid 3.
Okay. Well, yeah, we heard about that.
That's
for sure.
that's 100%. I mean, it hasn't been confirmed, but that is happening, and I think it's happening. Blue Point is either working on a Metal Gear Solid 1.
Or Bloodborne 2.
Well, I actually think they're doing both.
Oh yeah.
I think what took them this long is Blue Point is revamped. So Blue Point was purchased by PlayStation.
Yep,
It's the
I
most
heard
recent
about that recently,
acquisition. And they said they're working on a completely new
They want to
IP.
work. Yeah. Well,
But that didn't mean that's the only thing that they're working on. And if you remember back when after Shadow of the Colossus, their remake was released in Demon Souls, they had like a little video with all these hints and pictures in it, and like about being solid, and there was allusions to Castlevania as well. And I really think that Konami has started to reach out, and they want people, because I don't think they're going to work on these games in-house.
No.
And that's smart for them, business-wise.
At this point, too, I think it's smart because I think the idea is that they want to get studios that are passionate about
Sure.
the properties, and to me, that is the best route to take.
I agree.
I feel bad for Mercury Steam in the sense that they kind of dropped the ball with the Lords of Shadow series.
Which is a shame, because I know not as many people agree, but we've talked about this ad nauseum on previous podcasts and privately. I think Lords of Shadow 1 is it's a game I will defend into my deathbed. I think it's a great game.
I think I bought it 3 or 4 times at this point.
Okay.
I got it on Steam now because they have the nice 60 frame per second and
Oh,
all the DLC included
Okay.
and all that kind of stuff. I got it for like $8.
sure.
But I also bought it for Xbox because it's on backwards compatibility.
Mhm.
After having already bought the collector's edition way back when for PS3. I love that game. I think
it's great.
it's fantastic. I know that a lot of people have their issues with it, as far as the static camera goes like that, but I actually think they kind of dropped the ball with Lords of Shadow 2. And
Oh, for sure. I remember talking about it with you, and we'll get back to our original discussion with Konami.
This is just a little
and who's
side.
going to handle the main properties. But I remember talking with you when the sequel was announced. That trailer came with the a la carte teaser. I was like, this has the potential to be like a symphony of the night of the modern age.
Yeah.
And like, especially the way Lords of Shadow 1 was. And it's like, they're talking about all these things and these elements they were going to mesh. And then what we got, I was like, it wasn't even bad. It wasn't bad. It was just kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And then the ending was stupid.
Oh my god, the ending was horrible. I think, yeah.
And then you couple that with the portable game, Mirror of Fate.
Yeah.
Which I did not like at all.
Well, and this is, to me, was when the signs were already there at that point with that one. And I'm pretty sure we talked about this already in a previous podcast. But yeah, Mirror of Fate had already shown the cracks in the storytelling. And then Lords of Shadow 2, because it being a follow-up to that.
And it's funny because it is another thing we used to talk about. This is also what I think Final Fantasy should do. Is because why can't we get both? Why can't we get our traditional, side-scrolling Metroidvania style in 2D, the smaller offings, and why can't we get the big 3D blowouts?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be either or? Surely a well-oiled machine and company that has their shit together and values their property can do these things. Like, what's our aim for Castlevania? What's our aim for Final Fantasy? Why can't we give them our 16-bit offerings, our traditional offerings that people want, and then we push the envelope on and take 3 to 5 years?
I 100% agree, especially in the case of Final Fantasy. I think they should have 2 separate teams, one making the games that are...
And it's funny because they got like 7 teams.
I know, right?
But no one knows what they're doing.
So yeah, I think they should have their team that is making the new, innovative, whatever the next chapter, in this case,
our flagship.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 16.
Right.
Castlevania main branch.
Right. But then let's have another team that's making Final Fantasy. It's still Final Fantasy, but you're going to incorporate favorite elements from previous titles.
Yeah, but still carry it. And for the sake of argument, we're saying Final Fantasy, but it could be Castlevania
and that's what I mean.
Well.
Like, I'm generalizing.
Or any franchise you love. Metroid as well. Like, we just got Metroid Dread. But why can't we have Metroid Dread, the Metroidvania style, and have a Metroid Prime, which is the big blow up, which they are doing.
I'm pretty sure we are getting Prime 4,
we are,
right?
We are, but I mean, how long has that been in development and rumored and talked about? And it's like, and it took them, decades at this point to move forward?
Metroid has one of those unique histories, right?
Yes,
it's a very old series that has fewer games than
and it's never sold well.
Which
Metroid
blows
Dread,
my mind,
because of the way it's talked about and critically, the way it's a critical darling series. But Nintendo fans, which is crazy because Nintendo fans eat everything. Yeah. Like everything Nintendo shovels in their mouth, they just give me more, man. No matter if it sucks, they juggle the balls and they love it. And it just sells 20, 30 million copies. Yeah. Yet but at least Metroid Dread is getting the due. But anyway, I think we're in agreement about let's rewind all the way back to Mercury Steam's offering. They seem to have what we're talking about. Yeah. They were doing that, but they fucked it all up.
So they dropped the ball on Castlevania, but they've picked it up for this Metroid Dread game.
Yes.
And from what I've seen, I'm actually I don't own a Switch. Probably not going to own a Switch.
I'm glad you just brought it because I completely forgot. I knew Mercury Steam did Dread, but I wasn't going to mention because it slipped my mind. And it's crazy. It's all part and parcel of what we're talking about.
From what I've seen, because again, I watched a bit of Maximilian playing Dread, and it looks fantastic.
I think it looks excellent.
It looks like based on Max's reactions to it too, it controls fantastically. Yeah. It's got the polish.
It's seamless.
The traversal seems like it's amazing. It looks fantastic. I'm actually a little bummed that I'm probably never going to play it.
Yeah. So let's rewind back to the Konami thing and wrap that up in a bow. Because I think you're right. So Castlevania, I don't know what they're going to do. But I mean, they want to do something. Because look at all these. We've got the Advanced Collection just most recently. Which was a surprise and a very, very welcome surprise. Because those games were stranded more than any others.
Yeah. And I'm
they
hoping
were
for
shredded.
more of that. I'm hoping for more of these Castlevania collections to come out.
Well, I mean, there's not too many left.
Aren't there? Is there
Not
not at
really,
least one
'cause-
more they could do?
What's left?
Are there any more?
Other than re-releasing Lords of Shadow in a nice tidy package.
I thought,
And
are there not more Game Boy game or advanced games, or like
that's all of them.
Is there a 3DS one or anything like that?
I think there's the N64 offerings, and there's Lament of Innocence on the PS2.
Okay.
I mean, yes, you're right. There are other ones.
But as far as the portable ones go, this is pretty much it?
I think so.
Okay.
Like there's 4, like there's Order of Ecclesia and all the GBA games.
Yeah.
Those are there.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we got the classic bundle.
Yeah.
That just came out all
Right.
the way up to Symphony of the Night. Oh no, sorry, that's a completely different one. So
Right.
it just proves my point. We've got multiple packages of Castlevania almost in succession.
Yeah.
And they don't do that without something in the future that they're planning,
Well,
right?
that's what I wonder, right? So, I picked up that first collection that's got the old Nintendo games on
Mhm.
it. And one of the things I love about it is that they patched into the Japanese versions.
Yes.
Because anybody that knows their history or not, some of these old Nintendo games had chips in them for doing better sound and music in the Japanese versions that the American developers decided not to put in, right?
Mm.
So you get some chunkier music in the Japanese version of Castlevania 3.
Yeah.
And it sounds fantastic.
So what do you think the plan is? Like, we'll go quick here. What do you think they want to do with Castlevania? And ideally for you, who would be a studio to handle it? Because they're not going to handle it in-house.
That is actually a really good question.
A lot of people, like, I'll start it off. A lot of people say, like, From Software. Personally, because they see, like, Bloodborne.
Yeah.
And they think that's essentially could be a Castlevania game. And while I don't think they're wrong, I don't think the combat style of what From does fits Castlevania.
No,
I don't
would
need
agree.
it to be more so deliberate and chunky, like a meaty, like like Castlevania has always been a fleet of foot combat style in all of their games.
Like, I wouldn't
if you suddenly added the Souls elements to Castlevania, I'm not saying it couldn't work, but for me personally, would I like it? And is that how I see Castlevania? No.
I think Platinum.
Oh, that's like a dream. That would be perfect.
That's the only one that's popping into my head right now that I think is a good fit. And I honestly, I don't want to like knock American developers, but I think it should be a Japanese developer.
I agree with you. Because Mercury Steam is a Spanish team.
Absolutely.
Not that, I mean, I'm not saying an American studio couldn't do it.
And I'm not either.
It's just, I think Castlevania is a Japanese series through and through, although it's probably not associated as such, especially now with the anime.
Right.
And that's another
well, and again,
stone in the gauntlet, per se. They're making this push. And if I see them building on that brand in a gaming form, because why not?
Sure. Have you watched all of the Castlevania series?
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
I think the ending was excellent.
Yep.
I wasn't a fan of the 3rd season as much.
Okay.
But I liked it all. It doesn't matter.
And here's a weird thing. I don't know if you noticed this or not. I thought the animation generally was excellent.
Sure. Same.
But there were times during some of the busier fight scenes when I thought like there should have been more frames of animation.
I see. But it's so expensive.
I know.
And from... Like an example is the new Neon Genesis rebuilds. The last one finally came out, and you could see the money being spent in the action, but it's almost so much busy and so detailed. It's really difficult to follow.
Okay.
And it's not missing any frames, like you're saying your example. But I don't know. There's a happy medium, but we're getting away from the game. I can't offer a better option than Platinum, although someone have to help them with their storytelling elements.
Well,
for Castlevania.
maybe somebody scripts it, but they handle the
gameplay.
Yeah.
So let's move forward to. Are you a big Silent Hill guy?
Well, see, yeah, I am. Even though I haven't played every game in the series, I'm drawn to that. The setting that it.
Out of the
gives.
two of us, you're the horror. You're a survival horror guy.
I like scary stuff, man. Yeah. I like.
I'm definitely not.
I like
much.
being creeped out.
I'm a big baby.
I will admit that I unintentionally ruined the ending of Silent Hill 2 for myself. It was totally an accident. I was just doing a little bit of research, watching some videos, and watched too far into one and found out the big twist. But I still went back and played the game later on, and
But there's
even
multiple endings in that.
and there's multiple endings in that game. So I mean, it didn't diminish my enjoyment, although I do regret not being able to enjoy the twists properly.
So I think, I honestly think it's a foregone conclusion that Kojima Productions is working on Silent Hills. Personally,
honestly, I don't want to believe it, but I want to believe it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's like far fetched, but at the same time, I would love to see it happen. I'd love to see Kojima do a Silent Hill game.
And Metal Gear. We'll wrap it in a bow with that. I know they're remaking things. Do you think Metal Gear Solid has a future? Like in terms of Metal Gear Solid 6?
Well, again...
And would you even want to see it?
I don't think that you're going to be able to... Like, yes, you could... I feel like they can completely make a Metal Gear game, but it's not going to feel the same. It's not going to have that Kojima element, right? So, sure, they could make a stealth game and call it Metal Gear and have some wacky characters, but I do feel like without Kojima there to
you just feel like someone's pretending.
Yeah.
They're just it's an imitation of what came before.
I just don't know, like, even if they were able to come up with cool characters and stuff like that, I feel like Kojima's just got a way about him, his quirkiness.
Well, yeah.
Whatever you want to call it.
And if that franchise, it's not just... Like, yes, Metal Gear is Metal Gear, all the elements and the crazy narrative stuff, and some of the like depression elements of it, like the Nostradamus almost quality, but it also has those, like, it has this weird shit about it that only Kojima seems to be able to pull off.
It's hyper realistic, but hyper over the top too, right? I mean, these characters and these fights that you're in. I mean, I'm thinking about like some of the crazy stuff in 3 and 4 for that matter. When you think about the big Metal Gear fight at the end of 4, when you're in you've got Ray and Rex. I mean,
it's awesome though, and but that's what we came for.
Yeah,
like we came to see that.
Yeah,
like, and that's all I wanted. What were your thoughts? I can't remember. Did you love Metal Gear Solid 5?
To be honest, I certainly don't hate it. I'm bummed that they were never able to complete it properly. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have the director's cut. We probably even talked about this before.
Yes,
we did. I've put it back in from time to time just to run around the world.
It's the only Metal Gear I've never finished.
Really?
No, I've seen the ending. And it's funny because it is the best playing game.
Sure.
In the series, and it's not even close. What it's doing and stuff like that. But I'll be honest, it's not why I played Metal Gear. It just didn't have... It only felt like Metal Gear to me at the beginning.
Okay.
And I just... Something about it just wasn't why I loved the franchise.
I think you can tell that Kojima was like not giving as much into
and we've talked about this before. What happened there, we'll never know. But it was clearly a game that was not finished and then pulled together at the last moment to be rushed. So would you want to see a future game, a Metal Gear Solid 6 per se?
I guess yes and no.
Okay.
It's one of those things where, yes, if it's great, no, if it's not, but we can never predict what's going to happen, right? Like, how crazy would it be if Capcom made a Castlevania game?
And Capcom's seen such a resurgence. I mean, that would be nuts.
Right.
But it could happen. I guess in terms of Metal Gear, I was, because of my rejection of Metal Gear Solid 5, and by proxy, honestly, Peace Walker. Like, Metal Gear Solid 5 was just an extension of Peace Walker.
Okay.
The base elements and the openness of it and stuff like
well,
that. And it's funny because I like Peace Walker.
Yeah.
But it's not what I wanted it to be.
Well, again, I liked it too, but it wasn't my favorite one in the series, right?
And I wouldn't have minded if they made a Metal Gear Solid 6 without Kojima. I think it could have been done. At this point, because Konami screwed up so many times, I think fans would reject it. But I wanted... What they should have done is they should have tested the waters and got an internal team to remake Metal Gear 1 and 2. Like Metal Gear 1 and 2.
Yeah,
NES.
like the old...
Bring it up with the existing engine.
Yeah.
They own Fox Engine.
Oh, yeah.
That,
exactly.
Remake those, because find your footing with that. The elements of what Metal Gear and Kojima made are there, and it's new. It's not just retreading old ground.
Sure.
I mean, it is, but it's not like the new stuff that most people associate Metal Gear with.
Those first two, I guess, what is that? The Sharp 6800? Is that what they were on? Or the MX?
Yeah. The first one was on the NES, but the second one, the sequel, never actually came to... It was on the MSX, wasn't it?
Well, is it the MSX? Yeah. Both of them were on the MSX originally. It was ported to Nintendo.
Well, the first one was, but the second one, the game that we got
The
as a
Snake's
sequel
Revenge.
wasn't... That's
just... Who did that?
I forget.
LJN or something?
Yeah, whatever. But yes, but then I wanted... I love... Metal Gear Solid 3 is one of my 10 favorite games of all time, probably 5. Again, it's hard to pin these things down unless we're actually focusing on it, which we would love to do. We'll pull up our top games of all time, do an entire episode on that.
Sure.
But for me, 6, and it's funny, I almost don't want to say this because I think it's such a great idea. I think someone will steal it. I'll probably talk to you about this, but Metal Gear Solid 3, the boss. The boss was how Metal Gear started, pure and simple.
Yeah.
But we know that she was such an endearing character and powerful character. Why don't we see what all happened before that?
Like a prequel to the prequel.
I always saw Metal Gear Solid 6 as you, the boss, and it starts with you storming Normandy in World War II. How good is that? And then, you have your team with you and you do all this other stuff. It would be awesome.
A prequel to the prequel.
Yeah.
No, I think that's actually a pretty smart idea.
And because to me, Metal Gear Solid, as we move further into the future, it got less interesting.
I think it's a great idea. I think Kojima is the only one that could
probably
work, right.
So anyway, yeah, and it's funny, we're on the Konami thing. I love Sacred Symbols podcast, Colin Moriarty and those guys, and they recently did an episode with Konami's resurgence. They were talking about the 5 properties that they'd like to see them work on. I think for us, 3 of them are definitely Castlevania, Metal Gear, and Silent Hill, right?
Sure. Yeah.
For me, actually, Silent Hill wouldn't be on mine. Okay. But those are 3 yours. Are there 2 others that you could think of offhand?
Konami.
For Konami? You got Contra. You got Suikoden. Whatever.
Actually,
it'd
be great.
Hearts, you got Zone of the Enders.
I would love to see a new Suikoden game. I would love to see a new Contra game that doesn't suck. I would love to see Life Force or Gradius or some kind of how about a collection of those games? Mm-hmm. And as far as shmups or shooters, as we love to call them, Sega owns all of the Technosoft stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I want Sega to make a Technosoft compilation.
Okay.
And not only a compilation, but I want them to do it in where you can switch between 16-bit graphics and new graphics and stuff like that.
Like how they did...
or have the original version on the disc, but also a remake.
Who's the company that made Streets of Rage 4?
Oh, shoot. But...
Yeah, but they also made Wonder Boy 3.
Okay,
the Dragon's Trap, and you can bounce back and forth with the visual styles.
And I don't mean I'm actually talking put the original games on this compilation, but also put remakes and maybe remix them a little bit.
Is it Dotemu? Dotemu or something?
I think something like that, yeah.
Great company. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just thinking.
But yeah, I want to see a Technosoft compilation. And I'm talking put Herzog Zwei on there too.
Oh, buddy, it's so good. But we're jumping all over the place.
We are jumping.
Me personally, so if you had to pick 2 others other than those core 3 for you, what would it be? It's a hard choice. Pick 2.
I'm going to go with Gradius, some kind of shooter compilation or a new game. And I think I'll go with Contra.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, mine would be Metal Gear, Castlevania, Suikoden, Vandal Hearts.
Yeah.
I love Vandal Hearts 1 to me. If you don't know, that it was a tactical strategy RPG. but it was on the PS1, and it had like every time you stab someone, like the gore would fly out.
Oh shit!
Like it was so like adult oriented. I was in love with that game.
I know the game, but not well.
And the storytelling was really good. Like it was political and you know, it was a great time for strategy RPGs with Final Fantasy Tactics and stuff like that.
And I know I'm kind of going to jump a little bit here, and this isn't Konami, but another franchise that needs a sequel or resurgence is Vagrant Story.
Oh yeah. But I mean, I don't. Yeah, it's so good. But my fifth one, Suikoden, Vandal Hearts, and then Zone of the Enders would be because I think Zone of the Enders 2 is it's definitely one of my top 50 games.
I've never finished it. I need to finish it.
Oh, no, finish it.
I've had the compilation.
No one has been able to nail mech combat and mobility.
Yeah.
Like Zone of the Enders has.
Oh, okay.
And Zone of the Enders 2, like Zone of the Enders 1 is like it was a weird game, but the potential was there, and visually that's what brought people in. But 2 really.
The only other mech game that I can think of that's even close to that would be like something like Gundam. Right?
Sure, and I don't like people. I've never played a good.
So
Gundam
I wouldn't
game.
be able to tell you either.
Yeah,
if
like
there's a Gundam game
know.
that maybe there is a Gundam game that plays as good as that. I don't know.
Yeah,
but yeah.
And that's what Konami. I mean, just to finish that, I'm excited for the resurgence of these Japanese companies. A lot of our roots came from those Japanese, whether it was Square, whether it was Konami, and then you touched on Capcom, which has been huge with what everything that they do now seems to like be gold.
I'm a huge Technosoft fan.
Okay.
And I'm sad that they don't really exist anymore, but I'm glad that Sega owns the rights to all their stuff. And I think Sega might also be on a good path.
For sure. Everyone keeps talking about them getting bought and going, I don't want to see Sega go exclusive. I want to see gaming is better. And I would say this for anybody. You know, I don't want to see the Bethesdas get bought up and stuff like that. Like I said, and I'm sort of stealing this, but I've agreed. The companies that PlayStation typically buys, they've fostered a relationship over many years.
Yeah.
Like, and these companies they've made games for other places too.
Sure.
Insomniac.
Yeah.
Like Insomniac went on and Sunset Overdrive.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And that was exclusive, but and listen, I guess I'm chirping. In a perfect world, games are made for everything.
Yeah.
Other than Mario on Nintendo and whatever, God of War on Sony. Like I still believe in exclusives, but third party games for everybody is a better thing.
That's a win-win.
It is a win-win. So let's finish up here. Let's get into our finale. And sort of now that we've reunited here and we're reforming Voltron, which is I'm like both of us are ecstatic to do this. And again, this was a bit scatterbrained, but I think we sort of found our groove here on what we're doing. But
hopefully
for the future, like, what do you want to do with this podcast as we move forward?
Well, I mean, we always talked about, you mentioned doing this like top games list or whatever. I mean, maybe for a podcast we stick it maybe to 20 or something like that.
Sure, 25.
Or maybe like our top 10s for each of us.
Sure, I mean that's time.
We could, talking about 20 games each. I mean, I'm sure some of our games would be the same, in different positions or whatever. But we've talked about doing a music episode.
Yeah.
I'm pretty flexible. And
that's good to hear. Because sometimes Donovan can be difficult. He's like a high maintenance celebrity. He has to go to bed at a certain time. He's got to put his certain cream on his face.
Dude,
how
do you think I stay this beautiful?
That's right. Donovan, for a 47-year-old man, he still looks quite youthful, ladies. Just to let you know.
I get people telling me I'm in my 20s still sometimes. It blows my mind.
All right, let's not get carried away.
Not kidding, man. Now, it could be the mask. Who knows?
Yeah, there you go. But so, in terms of a frequency, what do you want to try to adhere to? Like, for me, I would like to do bi-weekly. Because with the advent of... I'm not saying... Listen, we're not getting paid to do this. We're doing this for fun. And we're not asking... will it always be every second Thursday? No, it's not going to be every second Thursday. But I would like to do something like that.
If we can get into a good routine, I'm just as happy with that. Whether it be every 2 weeks, once a month, as long as like we keep our communication going, and it's just really a matter of that, right? So.
And we will. But I mean, with the technology, there's no reason why we can't. And, just jump on and do it.
If we decide to go video, I mean, we can also do some Zoom stuff.
Well, for sure. I mean, this Zencaster, what we're using right now, has a video option.
Right.
And then we just merge the audio files and the video files together. Or, we just do... Zoom might be easier if we're going to do the video.
If
I don't know.
we want to do it as frequently as that, it's probably going to be like, say, like a Zoom episode, then a not Zoom episode, or something like that.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
And then along the lines, like you said, I think the sky's the limit for what we want to do. Like, we'll try to keep numbered episodes like this. This will be the episode 1.
Well,
and then, we'll
do...
before we were doing spoiler casts. And honestly, moving forward, like we said, it's going to be so... We may do spoiler casts or discussions on games that are 5 years old.
Well, I mean...
Maybe longer. I don't know.
We've got the comic, the anime.
Sure. Yeah, all that's coming. The brand,
the claymation,
the PR people. Yeah, we've been talking to some
Grizzled
people
Veterans,
about,
the game.
Yeah. No, but we had originally with our podcast in 2012 and before and into 2013, we'd always wanted to do stuff with video game music, and I ended up doing some of that stuff.
Sure.
And I think me and you could do something like that.
We never actually did an episode focused on it, but I think just the fact that we had backing tracks in our... Yeah. That was one way just to give a nod to all that stuff. And I mean, I wasn't always able to use music from the game we were talking about, but I always tried to make sure that whatever was in the background was at least in relation to, or gave that element, the mood, the right mood. It was always about, that kind of thing, right? Complementing whatever topic we're talking about. So, but yeah.
But video game music is a big part of what we do. I'd like to, have some homages to certain games or franchises, and it's going to be a bit scattershot, but it's just going to be flavor of the month, whatever we feel like.
Yeah.
Wherever the tumor moves in the brain, like what are we going to talk about? Yeah. Those are great. But that spoiler casts, some old game discussions, some new game discussions, we'll keep it fresh here, but ultimately it's never, don't come here expecting the breaking news of the stuff.
No,
of
you can get that anywhere. You got
You're
Twitter,
gonna get that.
Anything, you got your phone for that. We're here to have a fun conversation. We hope you enjoy it.
Well, listen, guys, we're an hour and 22 minutes in, and I want to thank you for sticking with us in this remaster.
Yeah, re-grizzled.
Re-grizzled episode of the Grizzled Veterans. And me and Donovan are ecstatic that we're able to come together and do this again. I'll say my piece and then you say your piece. I absolutely love video games. I have a lot of plans moving forward, and I'm in a new chapter in my life now with my little guy, but time seems to be more valuable to me, and you cherish it more. And whenever I can carve out just a small corner of my life to talk about my favorite medium, I'm glad to do it with my good buddy here.
Appreciate that. And as far as I'm concerned, my love rekindled for some of the retro stuff. I'm playing as much retro stuff as I am new stuff these days. So I'm sure that we can incorporate that into future discussions as well. So yeah, I hope that we have our smooth sailing, many episodes to come, and I hope that you all stick with us.
Sometimes you got to go away to come back.
Sometimes.
This is it.
Right.
It's been fun, man. And thanks for sticking with us, all right? This is Grizzled Veterans. Peace and out.
Peace and out.